The retired military generals, through retired Marshal Muchena, have issued a very short statement to the people of Zimbabwe, and they did not flinch against Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa. They have decided not to actually sit at this moment. They have called on Zimbabweans to mount peaceful resistance, and they have actually said history would not forgive them if at this crucial moment they decide to fold their hands. So Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa expecting a resistance from the retired generals as well as the people of Zimbabwe. Greetings and welcome to your channel, the Hlonipani Global News. If you're watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. So this is the short statement that has been issued by retired Air Marshal, retired Vice Air Marshal Muchena, representing the retired generals in Zimbabwe. It says, statement by retired generals and senior civil servants of Zimbabwe. And it says, fellow Zimbabweans, it has come to our attention that on the 7th of July 2026, the President signed Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 into law. It is now Constitutional Amendment number 3. It was gazetted same day. Expectation. Let me just, I don't want to miss any of these statements. It says, our collective conscience will not allow us to remain silent while the Constitution is disentangled in silence by a few. This is not a minor amendment, rather. This is not a minor amendment. It is not an administrative adjustment. It is an assault on the constitutional covenant made in 2013 by the people of Zimbabwe. Through negotiation, national consensus, and referendum, that constitution belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to a president. It does not belong to parliament. It does not belong to any political party, faction, benefactor, or unelected cabal seeking refuge in legal manipulation. Let us call this by its true name. Zimbabwe has, in spirit, if not in form, returned to the dark logic of 11 November 1965, when a small circle abrogated to itself the power to redefine the law without reference to the governed. Then it was called UDI. Today it wears the clothing of constitutional amendment. The principle is the same. Power has placed itself above the people. Put simply, we are now being asked to live under a constitution altered, not by the sovereign will of the people, but by the decree of those who fear that will. The law is being made to serve power, instead of power submitting to law. The black majority, once again, is being told that it may vote but may not choose. That is the deepest betrayal. Carry now Constitutional Amendment number 3 is vulgar. It is an abomination. It offends the spirit of liberation. The discipline of constitutionalism and the promise made to every Zimbabwean that never again would the destiny of this nation be arranged by a few men and women behind closed doors. The merchants of this amendment claimed they were curing toxicity in our body politic. In truth, they have poured poison into the constitutional bloodstream. They sold vinegar as wine. They sat in the shadows, drafted this thing, voted it into law, and betrayed the constituencies that sent them to parliament on a different mandate. Those who used the mandate of the people to diminish the power of the people must be judged accordingly. They have taken from Zimbabweans one of the most sacred democratic rights, the right to choose the direction in which this country must be governed. We make no pretense of prescribing every step that must now follow, but this much is plain. Zimbabweans must now organize, mobilize, and use every lawful method available to resist and reject this constitutional abomination. Silence is no longer neutrality. Silence is complicity. This constitution was born out of struggle, sacrifice, and national expectation. It must not be surrendered to political convenience. It must not be surrendered to fear. It must not be surrendered to those who treat the republic as their private inheritance. We did not spend our careers defending this nation's institution to now watch them destroyed under color of legality. Our resistance must be disciplined, it must be lawful, it must be relentless. History is watching. Let it record that when the hour came, we did not flinch and we did not break the law to save it. I thank you, Air Marshal Henry Muchena, that is retired. So the retired generals have finally responded. After some time, I can actually concur with you that it did take them this time because there were some meetings and consultation. It's quite clear that the retired Air Marshal Muchena is not acting in his own accord or to quench his own interest, but rather he has to take instructions from a collective. That is why you did not see an imminent response. What is quite clear is that the retired generals are not flinching. They have actually called on the people of Zimbabwe to mobilize themselves and resist this constitutional amendment bill number 3 of 2026. In fact, they called this piece of legislation, they called it this thing. You know, they called this thing, and they are calling the people of Zimbabwe to resist this Mnangagwa thing, which is Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 20. Now it's an act, Constitutional Amendment Act of 2006, Act number 3 of 2006. They called on all the citizens to mobilize, and also they have called for peaceful resistance. They have called on Zimbabwe to actually use every avenue at their disposal, lawful avenue to resist, to mount resistance against this illegality that has taken place in Zimbabwe. Now, what is the meaning of this? You know, every person that has called for demonstrations always call them peaceful. They always ask people to peacefully demonstrate. They always ask people to peacefully resist. But resistance in its very nature is not peaceful. but leaders always exercise caution, especially when they call for protest, because under the Constitution of 2013, a peaceful contest, peaceful actually protest rather, is allowed, is permissible by that particular constitution. But remember, I can just give an example. In South Africa, they were recently protests. They were called peaceful, but were they peaceful? They were never peaceful, but they somehow achieved, of course, not 100%, but they achieved what was intended. So the goal here is to get Zwikananda's marching out, is to stop Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa. And from the look of things, the retired military generals have actually agreed that this should be stopped. These are not retired military generals. They are also senior civil servants, which means they are active serving military personnel. They have also said, let us mobilize ourselves as Zimbabweans and resist this. Definitely, Mnangagwa should expect a multifaceted resistance. It will come from the opposition. It will come from the war veterans. It will come from the retired generals. It will come from the active senior civil servants serving within the military, who knows, also within the Zimbabwe Republic Police, who knows, maybe within the prisons. There is a lot that is coming now that demonstrates that within the institutions itself in Zimbabwe, there has been resistance against this policy direction that Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa, as well as Zwikanandas, have chosen to undertake. And they said in the statement, which came out clear, the retired generals and the senior civil servants have actually made a point clear that Zimbabwe has returned to the era of UDI, have returned to the era of colonialism, where decrees ruled the people of Zimbabwe. And they said the parliamentarians were not voted in 2023 to act in a manner they acted. They were not given the mandate they exercised, which means they exercised the mandate that was not derived from the people of Zimbabwe. And the retired generals have equated that to a decree. Exactly the same system that was used by UDI that propelled the people of Zimbabwe to stand up and fight against the system. And when they said Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa have taken them to the era of 1965, what are they simply saying? They are saying the moment requires that Zimbabweans stand and resist Mnangagwa. In a similar fashion, Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa was resisted. In a similar fashion, Ian Smith regime was resisted by the liberation fighters during that particular period of time. In actually unambiguous ways, they have told Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa point blank that you have backtracked Zimbabwe. You have actually taken back Zimbabwe into where it is coming from. That is what the retired military generals are saying, led by retired Air Marshal Muchena. And Air Marshal Muchena saying this moment they would never remain silent. They would not allow interest of an individual to supersede the interest of the nation. They will fight for the interest of, and this statement, by the way, I was reading it from the wall of Jacob Ngarivume. That shows, Jacob Ngarivume is part of the coalition that was recently formed that consists of war veterans, all major opposition players in Zimbabwe. And that shows beyond reasonable doubt that this time around the opposition is willing to work with the other faction in ZANU-PF. By the way, that matters the most in the Zimbabwean politics, because I can tell you, Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa will not win. And we are at a very crucial and definitive stage at the moment. Already, I hear the 31st of July being the date where protest is going to be mounted. But I think the 31st of July, in my view, is very, very far. Today is the 10th of July. And these protests, they shouldn't be dates for these protests. These protests should actually continue until Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa is gone. Exactly the way Blessed Keza used to say when he started the protest, he said they would not stop until Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa is gone. So that's the direction that the retired military generals have taken, as well as senior civil servants. They are calling on Zimbabweans to mobilize themselves and resist peacefully this constitutional amendment act of number 3 of 2026 that is essentially taking us back to the Ian Smith era. This is the legacy of Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa. Thank you very much for watching us. If you are watching us for the very first time, please don't forget to press the subscribe button. You can financially support this channel by pressing the join button and be part of our members who are the of this channel. You can equally do so by pressing the thanks button and send us stars. Okancubu Mhlabane is signing out. Let me